Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, but we're going to head up towards Gothenburg once again. Göteborg, as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get that Gothenburg catchphrase in when we're reviewing Gothenburg beers because it is just a bit of a charmed tradition these days, as I always say. But for this one we're going to return to one of my favourite Swedish breweries, and these guys have featured on the channel maybe around 20 times or something like that. But this is a style of beer that I've always enjoyed and one that I've never had from them before, so I think that should form the basis of a pretty interesting review, and I'm certainly looking forward to this one. So for this review then we are going to return to Beerbliotek. And the beer we're having a look at today is called The Trash-Filled Streets Make Me Wish We Were Headed Home. So yeah, another one of these crazily long names from Beerbliotek, as they often like to have on their beers. But this one comes in at 7.4% ABV, it's a brown ale, and according to the Beerbliotek numbering system, this one is number 293. So of course this brewery are very, very well known for just producing lots and lots of different beers, and that's how they've really made their name. But this particular beer was released as part of the Lokalt Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden on the 4th of January 2021, and it came out with another brown ale actually from Hylia Brewery. So these styles are not styles that you come across all that often. I love a good brown ale, and I have done ever since I tried Brooklyn Brown all those years ago. So when I saw that Beerbliotek were going to have a go at one, I thought, well, you know, why not? Let's have a go at this. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. 7.4%, so it should have a really nice kind of malty base to it. I'm certainly looking forward to it, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well. Always nice to try new things from Beerbliotek. These guys have a good reputation for putting out lots of very kind of nice and very quirky beers, so I think this one should turn out quite nicely. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Beerbliotek before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite often at the moment because I am back in Sweden and there's lots of beers to work my way through, and it will continue to be added to regularly over the next little while. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review, especially the brown ales. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Beerbliotek then, on to my brewery notes. So Beerbliotek, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded back in 2013 by a multinational group of friends. This is Adam Norman, who's from Australia, Richard Bull, who's from New Zealand, a Kiwi, Anders Hedlund, who is Swedish, and then Darryl de Necker, who is from South Africa. And I've spoken with Darryl quite a bit over the years through kind of social media and things like that. Really quite nice guy, so I look forward to meeting him in person at some stage. But Adam and Richard ran Bar Doppio in Gothenburg, and Darryl and Anders were regular customers at the bar, and they often just used to sit and chat away about beer, you know, different styles and things like that. And then one day they got together, bought a brew kit and started to brew their own stuff, and let's just say it's gone very well for them. But the original brewery that Beerbliotek had was in the old Klippan Sugar building, which is a really nice old building that's actually very close to the old Carnegie Brewery, and quite a famous company actually, and quite close to the centre of Gothenburg if I remember rightly. But the original brew kit that they had was from Brewfab in Scotland. I believe that went to Stockholm Brewing after they'd finished with it, but in their first year of production they produced around 38 different kinds of beer. All of their beers were brewed in very, very small batches, so this kind of helped them stick to their home brewing roots of rarely brewing the same beer more than once, and they still say that they don't have a fixed range, if you like, and they're always brewing new beers. But what I would say is that there are beers that turn out to be very popular, and quite often those are brewed again and again, such as the Passion for Gingers. That's a very popular one. The Moment of Clarity as well, the Session IPA, is quite a popular one as well, come to think of it. So yeah, they have got beers that do make reappearances And those ones tend to be the kind of very popular ones, if you like. But a little bit later, in 2015, they opened a second brewery in Kungston, which is where they have their main tap room now and run their main brewing operations. The old brewery is used mainly for producing different sour beers, and they're also working on a barrel aging project at the moment in the new brewery as well. For some reason, they've only released one of those beers through Systembolaget, and I think the other ones have all been released, you know, abroad in different places. So I'm not sure why there's only been one barrel aged beer come out through Systembolaget thus far. But yeah, it is something that I hope we can see more of. I think the barrel aged beer that I had from them was a barley wine called Would I Lie to You, and it was, you know, really pretty damn good actually. I really enjoyed that beer. But yeah, I do hope we can see more from their barrel aging program through Systembolaget over 2021. That would be awesome. But yeah, the idea behind the name Beerbliotek is that these guys wanted to brew a wide variety of different styles so that the customer was always learning something about a new hop variety, you know, new malt, different kinds of yeasts and things like this. So basically they wanted to create a library of beers, so Beerbliotek basically. But as of January 2021, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, these guys have produced 270 different kinds of beers, and you know, I think that's a pretty good return, because I know that some of the beers, if they don't turn out quite nicely, they do get thrown away, and you know, if over the years they've only had to throw away 20 batches or something, I think that is pretty impressive actually. So like I said, this one is number 293, and according to Untappd, they've produced around 275 different kinds of beer. So I think that is a pretty impressive return actually. Not many of them have had to be thrown away. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Beerbliotek for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork before we open it up. As you can see, it's quite random and quite, at the same time it's a little bit random, but it's quite typical of what you would expect of Beerbliotek. One of the little touches I always like on the Beerbliotek cans is that they have this little product of Sweden thing on them. But yeah, like I said, this beer is called The Trash-Filled Streets Made Me Wish We Were Headed Home, number 293, and it says here on the side, a brown ale. Naming brown ales isn't easy, too tempting to use puns, but in the end the words aren't important, so ignore the trash and head on home. No trash at beerbliotek.com. So yeah, little 330ml can, this one. I can't remember what I would have paid for this. I think it must have been around 35 Swedish kronor, so again, this is about €3.50, about £3 sterling, and I guess maybe about $4 American, something like that. But yeah, 330ml can, this one. It's 7.4% brown ale, and as I said, it's a style that you don't come across all that often. And that was my main motivation behind getting this one to review for you here on the channel. So without further ado, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. This beer, as I mentioned to you earlier, was released as part of the local Småskaligt assortiment through Systembolaget here in Sweden on the 4th of January 2021. So yeah, I have to say I'm curious to see what this has in store for us. Love a good brown ale, and I was impressed with the one that Julia released. That was just a 6% of that one, and I was really impressed with that. So this one's a little bit heavier in alcohol, so I think this one should be quite nice. But these guys know what they're doing when it comes to these big malty beers actually. So yeah, I have to say this looks very nice. So if we shine the light through this beer, it's actually a very dark, rich kind of ruby colour. I'm not sure how well that's going to show up to you on the camera, but it's a lovely kind of dark, you know, very dark chestnut, stained mahogany kind of ruby type colour. You can see that there's a solid 3/4 finger of a frothy, I would say, kind of very light beige head on this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but I mean overall it does look pretty damn nice, I have to say. So yeah, I do like how this one goes together in a sense. It looks pretty much as you would expect. You will get brown ales that are a little bit brighter than this, you will get ones that are even darker than this. You know, the brown ale is quite how do you say it? It's quite an ambiguous style almost in some ways. Yeah, the colour of these can change quite dramatically, but for me this one's a lovely dark kind of ruby colour. It's got a little bit of a natural haze to it, but I really like how how it goes together in a sense. It certainly looks as you would expect from this particular style of beer. But yeah, I have to say, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. So in terms of appearance, nothing madly surprising when it comes to a brown ale. Like I say, they can be a little bit different to this one in appearance, but you know, having a very dark, nice kind of ruby mahogany colour like this is not unheard of for this style. So yeah, let's have a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Very, very curious about this beer, as I said. Ooh, now I have to say that does come across very, very nicely. So it's got a lovely big kind of bready backbone to it. There's a little bit of a kind of toasty bread crust in it, like a sort of it's quite rye bready in a lot of ways. It reminds me a lot of a kind of nice, slightly sweet German rye bread, but you do get a little bit of that slightly toasty, almost dusty, grainy quality out of this one. So yeah, I do like that about this beer for sure. A little bit of a kind of toasty rye bread crusty quality to it, which I think goes together really, really nicely, I have to say. But there's quite a bit of sweetness to this one as well. I mean, it's 7.4%. You will find brown ales that are stronger than this. Imperial brown ales, for example, the Karma Citra, if you like, from Beer here in Bornholm over in Denmark. One of the best brown ales, incidentally, that you'll find on the market. But yeah, that's you know, that beer is just something else, I have to say. But this one, I think, has a lot of potential. But yeah, it has a good balance between the breadiness and the sweetness, if you like. It's I think this one is going to be one of these beers that starts off quite bready and then it just gets sweeter and sweeter the further you go into it. But yeah, like I say, you know, a little bit of a kind of rye bready, toasty, brown bready crust to it. Lovely big kind of sweet rye bready notes. There's a few kind of woody undertones in there, a little bit of nuttiness to it as well. Good little bit of a kind of toasty, pardon me, a little bit of a kind of toasty, caramelly note to it. A little bit of biscuit, you know, McVitie's digestive biscuits. But at the same time, you get a little bit of a kind of oily, caramelly note out of this one as well. And all of these things are elements that you would expect of an Imperial Brown, of course. So yeah, I do like how this beer goes together. It does start to lean more towards the sweet side of things, the more that you smell of it. But if you take this one in a little bit more deeply, you do start to get a more kind of grainy aroma out of it, which is quite interesting. But yeah, the sweetness, I think, really does kind of linger there, to be honest with you. And I think this one's going to have quite a little bit of complexity to it in the flavour when we do get around to tasting it. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, I think we've said as much as we need to be honest, about the malty side of it. It's quite well balanced in that sense. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, little touch of earthiness to this one, but not too much. You've got a nice little bit of floral aromaticity there. It comes across as quite a soft floral aromaticity in some ways, but at the same time it's quite fresh. And then you've got a nice little bit of a kind of juicy, you do have a nice little bit of a sort of juicy, kind of grassy quality out of this one too, which is quite interesting. The grassy notes, pardon me, come across as being quite wet. So yeah, the fruity aroma out of the beer, I think, is very, very nice. So yeah, on that fruity side of things, what would you say about this one? There is a wee bit of that plummy, raisiny note in there, but that's quite mild, to be honest with you. There's a good little bit of a figgy note, I would say. Yeah, nice little bit of a slightly kind of juicy figgy note in there, then a little bit of a kind of blackcurranty, little bit of a blackcurranty blackberry sort of thing. So yeah, the aroma of this beer is quite typical actually. It's got a nice little bit of juicy fruitiness in there. I think the hops and the malts in this beer are really quite well balanced actually, and that's one of the big things with these sort of American brown ale type beers. They've got to be really well balanced. They're not, you know, overly madly punchy in terms of hoppiness, and they're not, you know, crazily sweet and malty, if you like. You have to get the balance right with these if you're going to produce a good version of the style. But yeah, I've got high hopes for this one, and you know, Beerbliotek have a reputation for a reason. So yeah, take a little bit of time and just ponder over the aroma of this one, and we're going to try it now because I'm just very, very curious. So this one is called These Trash-Filled Streets Make Me Wish We Were Headed Home, if I've given it its name correctly. I guess sometimes with these Beerbliotek ones I won't, but this one comes in at 7.4% ABV. It's an American brown ale from Beerbliotek in Gothenburg on the west coast of Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's pretty nice actually. First impression of this beer is that it's very, very smooth, and nothing wrong with that. With a brown ale, nothing wrong with a bit of smoothness, I have to say. Yeah. This beer for me, it is, as I say, very slick and really quite smooth, but it's all about the aftertaste. Absolutely all about the aftertaste, I have to say. So yeah, this one does get a bit of a thumbs up from me. It does get a little bit more grainy and dry and things the further you go into the aftertaste, but when you've got the liquid on your tongue, it's very slick and it's very, very smooth. So yeah, this one has a wee bit of dryness to it later on in the aftertaste, which is quite nice. So yeah, where to start with this then? So straight away with this beer, you can feel that nice kind of bready backbone just blanket in the middle of your tongue. What you'll feel underneath, and this develops as you go further into the aftertaste, there is a little bit of a kind of toasty, bread crusty note there. That sits across that middle third of your palate. But on top of that, you've got a nice kind of smoother, you do have a nice little bit of a smoother kind of brown bready kind of rye bread type quality out of this one. If you go to the front corners of your palate and then go diagonally back, there's a few kind of woody elements in there, and if you go to the very centre of your palate and then just go forward, there's one or two little nutty notes in there as well. But I mean, overall it's very, very I would say that it's very, very kind of, how would we say, it's those are very, very subtle, those notes actually. But this beer, it's incredibly smooth and incredibly slick in the beginning, but then you start to get more and more of a sweetness kind of out of it a little bit later on, to be honest with you. Yeah, I have to say, I like this one. I think it's really well balanced. I mean, by no means is this the kind of most punchy beer that you're going to find from Beerbliotek. No way is it the most kind of striking beer that you're going to find from them. But it's really nicely balanced. I mean, that's one of the things that I really appreciate about this brewery, is that they can do all these different styles really well. And I would say that this is a slightly more kind of smooth and kind of almost grainy brown ale. That's how I would describe this one. So yeah, let's try and focus on that middle part of your palate there. If you go to the very centre, very centre of your tongue, you'll get a little bit of that kind of slightly sweet caramelly note. But as you move just a little bit further out from that, there's a nice kind of oily, slightly treacly molasses sort of thing. And as you go further out from that, you'll get more of the kind of biscuity McVitie's digestive notes. So basically in the middle of your tongue, on top of that bready base, you've got those nice kind of brown sugary qualities just pushing their way out of the beer. So I do like how that goes together as well. But like I say, this beer, when you move further and further into the aftertaste, it really starts to lean more towards the kind of graininess and dryness and things like that. So yeah, how would you say, the kind of graininess and stuff in this beer, I think, is very, very nicely done, and it balances the beer out very well. This one is definitely a beer that kind of you should focus a little bit more on the aftertaste in this one, I have to say. But yeah, I do like that about this beer for sure. So yeah, on to we've covered the kind of middle part of your palate quite nicely, and I do think that the more you drink of this beer, the more that it starts to sweeten up actually, which is nice. But yeah, if you go further back in the palate then, as you reach that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you've got a little bit of a kind of more prominent bread crusty sort of thing. It does have a little bit more dryness there, but as you reach the very back third of your tongue, you can feel the breadiness does thicken up a little bit, and you've got some more kind of graininess in there. I wouldn't say that it's overly bitey, but it does have a little bit more of that kind of toasted grainy vibe to it, and at the same time it does smoothen out a little bit as well, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I think that covers the kind of middle part of your palate for sure. But the further you go into the aftertaste with this one, a bit more of the woodiness comes out, a bit of the graininess, and a bit of the kind of toasty character to this beer as well. And there's a bit of sweetness there in the middle of the palate too. So yeah, I certainly like how this one goes together. So a big thumbs up once again to Beerbliotek for this beer. Another style that they've shown they can do pretty nicely, I have to say. Pardon me, getting a little bit of gas off it, but yeah, let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. I'm not sure what hops they would have used in this one actually. The Huglia one that I reviewed recently, it was quite obvious what they'd used in that, but with this one I'm really not quite sure. But yeah, in the back corners of the palate you do get a little touch of a smooth earthiness there. That spreads further forward, about halfway up the sides of the palate, and then it starts to evolve to be a little bit more of a kind of floral, aromatic sort of thing. Then round the front curve of the tongue it's a little bit lighter and more grassy in that sense, I would say. But yeah, the grassy side of this beer, I think, just gives the beer a little bit of almost freshness in a sense. It sort of gives you a little bit of contrast. So yeah, the floral aromatic notes on the front corners of the palate just give the beer a little bit of contrast with the whole malty, grainy sort of thing that's going on with it otherwise. But yeah, the green component in this beer, yeah, a little bit earthy, and I think the earthiness does have a bit of prominence, a little bit of floral aromaticity and a nice slightly bright grassy kind of thing. But on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So for me, on that kind of front third of your tongue, there's a fair little bit of stuff going on. So if we go to that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, there is a little bit of that kind of soft, brown bready type quality there. There is a bit of a kind of wholemeal bready quality develops out of this beer later on. But on the fruity side of things, what would we say about that? Yeah, I mean for me, it's quite a smooth, sort of red fruity character you're getting out of this one. I mean, this could be like Eureka, Williamette or something like that, maybe even just a little bit of Cascade that's coming out of this one. You know, I think it might just be a bit of, I've got a feeling it could just well be Cascade that's coming out of this beer, to be honest with you. Because yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a little bit of a kind of oily, plummy, oily, kind of almost an oily. It's not sharp enough to be raisin, so it's a more kind of oily, plummy note, and then as you move further forward on that front part of your palate, it's got a soft kind of almost figgy note. Then on the front half of that front third of your tongue, it starts to give you a little bit more of a kind of oily, it does give you a wee bit more of a sort of oily, kind of blackcurranty, blackberry sort of thing to it, which is quite interesting actually. I like how that kind of complements the whole beer. The fruity side of this beer just offers another layer of complexity to it. But yeah, this is quite a smooth and very bready leaning kind of brown ale for me, and it's got a bit of graininess, as I say, that comes out more in the aftertaste. But this one certainly hits the spot for me. It gives me everything I would want from a brown ale. Is it the most kind of striking beer that I've had from Beerbliotek? I wouldn't say so, but is it well executed? Absolutely. And to be honest, this is a style that you don't come across all that often, and that's all you can ask of them. You can just ask them to execute this style very well, and they've certainly done that. So thumbs up to Beerbliotek in my mind for this one. But yeah, I think that kind of gives you a good picture of what the flavour is like in this one. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, to round off, I would say that this beer is quite, I'd say that it's quite mid-bodied. The carbonation is, yeah, the carbonation is fairly smooth in this one. It's got a good bit of wetness to it. I mean, there's a bit of slickness in there, a little bit of wetness, which you're always going to get with Beerbliotek, in fairness. In terms of hoppy bitterness, this one is not a heavily bitter beer, not at all. It's, you know, I think you're talking maybe about 40 IBUs at most. It's got a good little bit of grainy bitterness, in fairness to it, not a lot from the hops in my mind, so there's a little bit of bitterness to this beer. Nice kind of smooth maltiness. You get a little bit of sweetness out of the beer the further you go into the aftertaste. Then you've got just a little bit of a slightly juicy red fruity note out of this one. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on in this beer. It's got everything you would want from a brown ale. It's nice and smooth, nicely executed, and I think it goes together very, very well. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this review. This has been a really interesting beer to review, and I hope that that you guys have enjoyed my take on this one as well. I've certainly enjoyed kind of drinking away with this one. So yeah, it'd be nice to review another brown ale for you after quite a wee while. Well, of course, we had the Puglia one quite recently as well, but it's really not that often that you'll come across these different beer styles. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Beerbliotek. We will return to these guys very soon, I'm sure, but in the meantime, this one was called These Trash-Filled Streets Make Me Wish We Were Headed Home. One of the crazy long names you're going to get from Beerbliotek, but it was a brown ale coming in at 7.4% ABV, and it was number 290, was it 94? 93, 293 in the Beerbliotek numbering system. Really nice beer, nicely executed, you can't ask for much more. Thank you again for watching, check out my social media, check out Beerbliotek Brewery, and I will catch you guys in the next review. Slàinte, skål, cheers.